welcome to a Connor Stalions is in self-preservation mode, so let's steal his signals edition of the OHIO podcast. Do us a big favor, buddy, and smash that like button if you haven't already. And if you haven't, what are you doing? You've already made it like 10 seconds into this video. You should have smashed the button right off the bat. Plus, if you haven't, please consider subscribing to the channel. It does help this grow. We're only 150 subscriptions away from 4,000 here at the OHIO podcast, and we would love for you to be one of those 4,000 if you haven't already. And of course, we know that this topic is going to be a lightning rod for most of you in Buckeye Nation or in other fan bases as well. Please consider making a comment down in the comment section below at any point during this video. If anything I say you agree or disagree with, we'd love to hear from you either way. Shoot, I don't know. Maybe you just want to talk about how great my hair looks today. I don't know. Or how terrible it looks. Whatever. We'll take all of the comments. They mean they all equal the same, right? All right. You all know by now Connor Stalions was on 3 Friday afternoon. They posted a video of an interview that he had with that publication, and I didn't want to respond right away. As an Ohio State fan, I looked at it through the prism as of an Ohio State fan. Of course, I'm biased. I'm not gonna ignore that. I mean, I'm a Buckeye fan. Of course, I'm biased. But I did start to notice some things, especially after I've let it, simmer for a couple days, about 48 hours, and that I've thought about and analyzed, and I want to share that with you. So Connor Stalions is letting off some major signals that he probably doesn't realize that he's doing. And if you're a Michigan fan, you have no idea that this is exactly what he's actually doing because he does not want to face the thunder that could be coming from the NCAA without your support. And so by gaining the support of the fan base that he admires so much, he is preserving. In a lot of ways, he's in preservation mode. He's preserving that admiration that you all are giving him as a defense mechanism. It's actually pretty brilliant what he's doing when you stop and you think about the difference between, say, him and the guy for the Chicago Cubs that caught that foul ball that everybody immediately hated on, right? um, the difference how the fan bases approaches have approached those two different things when you analyze it. And so it's really intriguing. But there's two things here. There's the psychology side of this, which I will attack first, and then there is the nonverbal cues that he's giving off that we will also touch base on. Now, I'm not a psychologist. I did take some psychology courses in college en route to the 3 degrees that I have, but um, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know everything that there is to know about psychology. That is not the case. I'm just a well-educated individual who happens to know a few things about what is taking place here that I would like to share from you from the perspective of an Ohio State fan. Keep that in mind. And then we'll talk about some of the nonverbal cues. Again, I am not a speech expert or an individual who can look at someone and say, hey, 100% I know they're lying or they're not. A lot of criminal experts can. But there are certain cues that you can give nonverbally. And again, my wife, who's a speech pathologist, um, she spoke a lot to me about some of these things and told me what things to look for. And so I've watched the video, and I think there's some cues that we can pick up on some nonverbal cues that he's giving off that I think can kind of let you know that he's lying on a certain a few things. By the way, I thought it was really funny if you watch the interview that he literally admits that he lied in the first 5 minutes of the interview when he says, I didn't watch the Netflix video more than one time, and then he says, "Well, that's a lie. I actually watched it twice." I thought that was actually kind of funny. He was like, "Well, you just admitted that you lie because you just did." But I know it was kind of a little bit tongue in cheek, and it was just kind of something we often say, and as Americans we say, I'm going to tell you the truth here, as opposed to like, well, that means you're not going to tell me the truth, like you know what I mean. But anyways, I digress. So let's start here with the psychology of this. The facts are that he's done several things. Now, the first thing he did in this interview was he blame shifted. Okay, meaning I want I, I want to take the blame that's being placed on me, and of course, Michigan fans and is going to say from Ohio State fans, but it's more than just that. It's obviously the NCAA as well, and and it's the University of Michigan. Keep in mind, he was fired for these actions. Okay, how quickly we forget that as soon as this came to light, he was fired by the university. So they placed blame on him as well. Now, again, I'm going to see so many in the comments section right off the bat. He was the scapegoat for this. Okay, whatever you all want to say, the fact remains he performed the act and was fired for said act by the university that is now under investigation by the NCAA for this act amongst other things. Okay? But he blame shifts and immediately says we had to do this because Ohio State was doing this. So and then not only that, he says 95% of schools have 95% of the signs. Odd numbers to throw out there. I mean, obviously those are huge numbers, so it makes it devalues apparently the act or the crime or the rule that was broken. It devalues by saying, look at how many people do that. These are made up numbers. They're completely fictitious. There's absolutely no study that's been performed by the NCAA or anybody else to say 95% of Division 1 college schools or Division 2 or 3 or whoever have 95% of the signals from other teams. There is absolutely no documentation to that. There's been no study performed to even give you that number. It is completely fictitious and made up. These are his numbers in his head that he has provided. And the immediate response from the interviewer, if he was a good interviewer, should have been, where do you get those facts from? But he just smiled and nodded his head and took for face value that Connor's fictitious made up numbers were, I guess truth or his truth. Well, we're going beyond his truth here. We want the truth, right? Which should be the case in any situation based off of whether you're a fan from Michigan or Ohio State or some other school in this entire situation. So he deflects and places blame or blame shifts to the apparent uh, individual who's placing blame on him. And since he's feeling the pressure from Ohio State fans, he uses Ohio State in the blame shifting. That's the first thing that jumps out. We see this all the time in politics. It's called gaslighting, right? We're going to blame the side for something that's doing something that we're actually doing, but we're going to blame them that they're doing it, right? We see this all the time in the field of politics, and it's the exact thing Connor does in this. I've been caught or I've been blamed for this supposable sign stealing here, and so I'm going to blame those who are blaming me that they're the ones who were doing it. Okay, that's gaslighting, that's blame shifting. That's the first thing that happens here. Now, to dive a little bit deeper into why he would even do this, why he would allow himself to be interviewed in a situation where he might be asked certain questions. Now, obviously, he even admits he's got lawyers. He brings up his lawyers several times in this interview. Those lawyers are going to make sure that the interviewer is not allowed to ask certain questions, and that if there are certain topics that they don't want him to cover, or maybe they do want him to cover but in a certain way, they're going to tell the interviewer, this is how you're going to interview our client, and these are the criteria, or you're not going to interview them. And oh, by the way, when you're done with the interview and you're done making the edits, we're going to have to approve them or you don't get this interview. So a lot of people who are blaming On3 right now, keep in mind on three, more than likely. And if they didn't, then this is just complete idiocy on three that they didn't ask any hard hitting questions. A lot of people are like, hey, you didn't ask any of the hard hitting questions. Connor's lawyers aren't going to allow them to. Number one, like so they're kind of their hands are kind of tied and what questions they can even ask here. But if they didn't, if it comes out on three that there was zero contract here or any agreement in legal agreement with Connor's lawyers on this, and they failed to ask any hard hitting questions, then you might as well just throw any ounce of credibility that On Three has as a publication out the window. Just get rid of it because they did not do their job at all from the standpoint of journalism. But so he gets why even have this interview, right? So Connor admits in this interview, and he has admitted from the very beginning that his love for the University of Michigan and the football program um, is it's on a level that only people who um, are willing to basically change how they live their lives in order to reach a certain goal for that university. Um, only a only a handful of people are going to understand that, right? We as passionate fans, we would like to think that our love for the Ohio State or the love for Michigan, if you're a Michigan fan, reaches those kind of levels, and maybe it would if we were in those kind of situations that he was in, to where he could impact the team that has hired him in the university, the football program. But let's be honest, we're not going to be given those opportunities. He was. And so, you look at, like, let's take coaches, for instance. How many times have coaches left that university only to coach at a different university, sometimes even the rival university? And you have to question, how dedicated were they to the team that you're rooting for? You can listen, you don't have to question Connor's love for the University of Michigan. It is deep. It is absolutely incredibly deep. And so, because of that, it is obvious to me that it is important for him that at the end of the day, he does not get any blame or feel the blame that could be coming from the fan base if indeed there is a large punishment that comes from the NCAA. Let me explain a little bit further. So, again, I brought up Bartman, the guy from the Chicago Cubs fan, who the Chicago Cubs fans blame for their loss in the World Series when he reached out and caught that foul ball. Um, it is obvious to me that Connor's looking at this situation, and he has soaked up the admiration he's gotten from the fan base. And he's in a little bit of self-preservation mode now. If indeed the NCAA is going to come down hard on the University of Michigan, he doesn't want these people who are giving him that admiration to blame him. And so it is so important that he is viewed by those who he loves their admiration of as a victim in this. And so he needs to kind of move the narrative for the Michigan fans that, hey, man, I'm one of you and we're a victim in all of this. We did nothing wrong. And so it's narrative shifting, okay? Um, and it's smart on his part if indeed that's his motivation, right? And I'll show you why it's smart in just a second. But that is indeed the psychology of why you would even take this on, to try to gain that admiration. Sometimes it backfires on people. Think about in cases where there's been a child abduction and the parents are interviewed by the media, and there might be some like rumors out there that, hey, one of them may have murdered their child, and that, they're kind of faking, but yet they go on television and they try to gain the sympathy from people. Okay, there's a little bit of a psychology about this here. That's a little bit of what he's doing here. He's trying to gain that sympathy from the fan base that he admires in order to preserve that admiration that he's garnered so he doesn't lose that. And so he's going to shift that narrative. He's going to be a little bit of a narrative changer here, but it's directed right at the University of Michigan fans, okay? It's not at Ohio State fans or anybody else. He could care less about me, this podcast, or any of you who follow us. This is all about gaining that keeping that admiration from that fan base that he obviously cherishes, okay? And again, I told you I'll show you what I mean by this. Before we get into any of the non-verbal cues he was letting off, let's go ahead and I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I want you to read what Michigan fans are saying about this guy, okay? So, like I said, he's very smart on his part, and not only that, it worked. It absolutely worked. All right. I'm just going to read a few of these. The dude got crucified for being a mad genius at something all teams have a guy for, punished for being too good in this soft world. Again, all teams do this. There is zero evidence of that. Zero. Just because someone says they are doesn't mean that's exactly what's happening. Chris, this was awesome. That hour went by super fast. Great job, fellas. I wish Connor coaches Michigan someday. He's already a legend and will become a bigger legend as a head coach. You got to be kidding me. But again, it worked. The Michigan side of the story is the real side of the story. Football is religion in Michigan. Faith, family, friends, football. That's our culture. Um, I can actually hear the screaming OSU fans right now. Stalions is forever a Michigan man. I still can't believe he went and coached at Mumford. That's the hood. He a real one for sure. Great job at the interview, JD Pickle. And actually, it was not a very good job. He did do one thing well, and I think that's what you're about to point out here. Pickle for not interrupting the guest at any point and allowing Connor Stalions to fully answer the questions. Okay, yeah, he did do that well. He didn't interrupt. However, like I explained, his hands might have been tied, and or if not, it was actually journalism malpractice. Um, just a man who loves football and a true Michigan man. Um, Connor is a legend. Ohio State fans big mad. What a glorious 2,000 days has been, and the Buckeye tears make it even sweeter. Future head coach at Michigan, says Brandon. Um, this outdoorsman says to my OSU friends, cope and seethe. No hammer is coming, and Bryce Underwood is about to become your daddy. Connor Steins always does great interviews, always very interesting, informative, and insightful. Uh, Steins is a cool dude. Connor Steins is a Michigan man's Michigan man. All right, so there's a few, right? There's a few. Let me head back here to my screen. So there you have it. You see what I mean, right? Like there's totally the admiration is still there, and he's in self-preservation mode. I don't want to lose this. And Michigan fans are just falling right into it, man. If he set a trap for all of you, you all literally were like, I will jump in with both feet into this trap because he's spinning a narrative for you guys, and you guys are all just drinking from the water hose on it, man. Absolutely. Now, let's talk about some of the nonverbal cues, what you need to look for in the interview, right? Again, I am not an expert at this, nowhere near as good as my wife is, who is works with people about she's a speech pathologist. She says 75% of communication is nonverbal. So you could almost turn the volume off and watch the interview with no volume and just watch things like his eye contact, how he moves and postures his body and during the interview. And if you knew what the topics were based off of just those cues, you can actually see where the tough questions are that he's uncomfortable with. And lo and behold, it happened to be later in the interview when they're talking about sign stealing. His nonverbals change completely. There's a little bit of a nervous laugh. The eye contact. In this particular picture I showed you, he's looking right at the interviewer, Pickle here, but the but I would say 80% of the time, 70 to 80% of the time that he's speaking on this topic, he doesn't make eye contact with the interviewer. One of the things that you do when, whether you realize you're doing it or not, when you're lying, is you start to look off into different areas, because what you do with your eyes is you move your eyes while you're thinking, because you're trying to think of something to say that is going to sound intelligent and sound truthful, but in all honesty, you might be spinning the truth a little bit or just flat out lying, because it may causing you to be uncomfortable. There was the nervous laugh. That's another cue that you might be laughing. He starts talking and with his hands more. He starts moving, becoming a little bit more dramatic and sporadic with his hands. He's moving back and forth. And if you actually watch the interview in fast motion, he's very calm, he's relaxed, and then all of a sudden he's doing this. And it's like, oh, that must be the topic when they're talking about sign stealing. It's uncomfortable to him. Now, was he lying or not? I'm not going to sit here and tell you 100% that he was lying, but his nonverbals told me he was. He was completely making some of this stuff up. And again, I'm not an expert. I would happily share this with someone who is, to get their opinion, but those were the things I saw with my own two eyes while watching this interview that said, "Huh, that's interesting. I wonder why he got so uncomfortable during that time period." Um, there you have it, man. Again, self-preservation mode, watching out for himself, worried about what could be happening in the future. Uh, he still wants, his desire is to be a part of this program so much. And hats off to him for that, dude. Like, I mean, as a Buckeye fan, if I was in his shoes, as far as like being able to be a part of the Ohio State football program, I would absolutely want to do everything in my power for them to succeed here, right? And so I'm not going to sit here and bash his love for the university that he apparently has wrote a huge manifesto and still adding to, um, because of his love for that. Like, okay, like, dude, there's nothing wrong with that, man. That's obviously what you're into. But on the flip side, like, you as a viewer, as a fan, need to be informed of the truth. And the truth is that this entire interview was for him to spin a narrative so that he can preserve that admiration he's receiving from the Ohio, or excuse me, from the Michigan fan base. Because if the NCAA does drop a significant punishment, he doesn't want to be blamed for it. That's the truth. And whether that makes you happy or sad is beside the point, because the truth has no emotions when it comes to the truth. So there you have it, guys. That's my story today. Romans 6:7 is your verse for the day. For he that is dead is freed from sin. So thankful that I died out to sin many years ago, and I'm free from that sin because of the great sacrifice that Christ made on Calvary for my sin. Let me know what you all think down in the comment section below. What do you all think? Is this Connor spinning the narrative? Or all of a sudden, do you think Eric's trying to spin some kind of narrative here as a Buckeye fan, right? Let me know what you all think in the comment section below. We'll see you all tonight, 8 o'clock Eastern, for our live roundtable discussion. We're going to talk about this tonight. We're going to talk about a bunch of other things as well in this show. Don't forget Chris's call-in show tomorrow, Monday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern. My call-in show on Thursday, 8 o'clock Eastern. And, of course, we'll have all kinds of videos in between then and now for all of you. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We'll see y'all in the comments. Till next time, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH. Sing Carmen Ohio with all your heart. Go Bucks.